concessions can take you out. Like, especially if you are naturally a giver, concessions can take you on all kinds of tangents, just take you out. If you feel like you're a person that's always conceding in situations, you want to stay tuned. Hey everyone, my name is Latasha Martin and I am a business advisor who really focuses on helping people transform to be the greatest version of themselves. And I wanted to share that with you today because one of the key pieces of making sure that you are staying on mission and staying on purpose intentionally is this idea of, if you are a giver, like the core essence of you is a giver like me. This morning I woke up after my quiet time with God and I really heard the word concessions. Like, your life is filled with concessions. And then there's this quote that I've heard multiple times over the last 60 days. And they shared with me that, when you are a giver, you're supposed to give from your overflow. You shouldn't be giving from a deficit, meaning that when you say you have a cup, I know that there'll be you'll see that analogy where you see the cup, is it half full or half empty? But if you are like a really big giver, like for me, I was tying it to misguided loyalty, but it's just the core essence of me. It's easy for me to give. It's hard for me to receive. That's a theme. And if you want to be great, you got to be able to receive both relationships, information, opportunities. You got to be able to receive those things. And I want you to do a challenge actually for yourself, because I'm going to do this challenge myself. And when you have your goals for the day or your goals for the week or your goals for the month or your goals for however long, I want you to go back and reflect on the last 30 days. So we're going to take a 30-day window. And if you haven't done it, I would say start a tracker. Maybe I'll put one in the comments later. You're going to tick off for 30 days. This is what I want you to think about. How many times has someone called you to ask you about what's going on with you, and sincerely was not just asking that question as a lead-in to really get what they want? Because that happens to me a lot. Like, people like, hey, how you doing? But typically if they're calling multiple times, it's not just, hey, how you doing? There's some underlying, how can I help them in that conversation? That's what a trend that I'm noticing. Even with relationships that I'm really close to. And so I was asking God this morning, I said, why did I wake up this morning with this concessions? Like, your life is full of concessions and you're conceding consistently. You're not ever staying on task on the things that you want. You're always trying to not win-win solutions, because win-win solutions are totally different than concessions. Concession means one person concedes to the other person's desire. And even if it's a good thing, right? Even if it's a great thing, you got to remind yourself that those little concessions will mount up to turn into catastrophes if you're not managing that. And so why am I sharing that with you today? I'm sharing this with you today about the importance of being aware. Is if your life is full of concessions or compromise. Compromise could be also known as AKA, right? Like, a concession is I'm conceding. A compromise is we're coming to a win-win solution where I win, you win. I've talked about this thing. I read this book in Cialdini's 5 Weapons, and he uses an example in it because it's like the art of negotiation. And he uses this example where there was 2 young ladies and there was one lemon, and they both were arguing over the lemon. And so they were going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on why I need the lemon. And then finally they ask each other, well, why do you need the lemon? One needed the lemon rind. The other one wanted the lemon juice. That is what we call a win-win, right? That's a compromise. A concession would have been, I ain't even trying to continue to argue about this lemon. I'm just going to give it up. And if your normal auto response in conflict, or even if it's not conflict, just day to day, you're finding yourself, I'm always giving concessions and I never have time for the things that I desire, I really want you to take notice. And then after you notice that there is this thing happening where you're feeling like your life is full of concessions, then this is the bold, radical prayer I would love for you to ask, because I know I'm going to God with this. And I had to shift my mind to even be ready to pray this prayer, y'all, because I prayed prayers before, but sometimes you be praying prayers and your mind is not ready for the prayers that you coming out your mouth. So like what's coming out your mouth, your mind is not ready for it. But my mind is ready for this bold, radical prayer in 2025. So this bold, radical prayer is, God, I thank you for the transformed relationships, or I'm also thanking you for the new relationships that are coming my way, that are going to be ones where we are pouring into each other, or I'm pouring from my overflow. I'm not going to live the life of concessions. And God, I thank you for the awareness, because the word of God says that the word of God will cut you like a double-edged sword. So you giving me that word this morning and saying concessions can kill you or take you out because you're not focusing on yourself or focusing on things that glorify God. Because when you're not focusing on your mission, that means you could sometimes be disobedient to what God is calling you to, because you've done concessions all day long and you didn't get to the outcomes or any of the focus of what God wanted you to focus on for your mission, for your purpose, for your Jeremiah 29:11. He called you to prosper you. I was having this conversation with my mom this morning. I said, when I look at situations with my natural eyes, I can be perplexed. It's only when I spend that time with God and I listen to the voice, that still small voice. Like this morning, I was doing something, no way in the world would he have given me this word of concessions while I was doing a task. But why he did that for me is I wouldn't have heard it any other time. What I was actually doing was in my mind making up a story of how I could set up a concession because it's something that I wanted, instead of having the courageous conversation. And so, God, I thank you. And I want to challenge you to pray this bold prayer today. God, I know you have things before me. I know that you have called me to things. I know that you can, you have removing the scales from my eyes, that in all things work for the good of those who believe in God. You have a purpose and a plan for my life. And so, Lord, I thank you in advance to allow me to see, to allow me to receive, to allow me to be open to the relationships that are mutually beneficial for your glory, so that I can do your work, because I know that I cannot do it on my own. And so that is my challenge for you today. My challenge for you today is to take that 30 days, and you might start with the first 7 days. You might recognize in 3 days, oh my goodness, I am living in a space of concession, and I no longer want to be ignorant. What does the word of God? It says people perish for the lack of knowledge. You no longer can say, I don't know what's going on, why I don't get to myself, why I always feel like when I call everybody, nobody's available, but when everybody calls me, I'm always available. You're going to squash that right now. The reason why they come to you is because you will immediately put your stuff aside and concede to whoever is calling on that phone or texting you or sending you a message or sending you an email. Can't do that. Can't do that. We can't do that and please him at the same time. So I want to encourage you that if you are courageous enough, if you want to be in that state of great, you need to know that you cannot live a life of concessions. You need to have courageous conversations that are found fundamentally in love. Jesus never backed away from courageous conversations, and neither should you. So God bless, and we will see you again on the other side. Love y'all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.